So one of the main things that keeps coming up for people when they start going through their transitions is things start to fall away. Okay, like people fall out of your life, relationships end, jobs finish, you move house, the budgie dies, um, and you know this is such a common thing. Like everyone who goes through their dark night of the soul, their transition, is going to go through something like this. Okay, so if that's where you're at, you're in the perfect place, you're about to step off into a whole new future, and all those things that you've been dreaming about, been trying to manifest, are right around the corner. But the first thing we need to do is make some space. And if you haven't willingly done this, then your energy has hit a vibrational pitch where the universe starts to take over. It's like the algorithm, right, in social media or YouTube. You know, once you get some traction, things start to have a mind of their own. They start to work by themselves. And pretty soon you're a passenger on your way to your new future, which you've manifested probably months or even years ago. But the temptation is to go back and recreate things just the way they were because of the unfamiliar feeling of not having all the emotional needs met that you had from the previous life that you've just let go of. And so one example would be, a really simple example, is if you're trying to, be healthy and you're changing your nutrition, which I'm doing, you start eating right, and then you start to get hungry or you start to feel a bit weird, and you go and put back the old food that you used to eat, right? Or you go into the old habits that you used to do, and then you sort of nullify the changes. But on a bigger scale, more common scale, is in the context of relationship, is that you end one relationship and then you go straight into another one, which is very similar to the last one, almost an identical match when it comes to frequency. And the mechanics behind this, the thing that's going to really make you aware of what's going on so you don't fall back into the old trap, because I've done it myself, I've been there, done that, and done it a few times, and learned my lesson the first time, and had to repeat the cycle until I got it, is that your energy is changing so much so quickly that in fact what's happening is it's eating up the old energy of the past, right? So we have this auric field around us, this energy bubble around us, that is not just an energy field, it's things are happening inside it. You're projecting your consciousness through that field out into the field of infinite possibility, and the match of your energy is bouncing back like a ping on a submarine, coming back to you to reflect what you're broadcasting, what you're manifesting. But in the transition phase, when you're changing your energy, it's like the caterpillar going into the chrysalis. The caterpillar must completely dissolve until it can reorganize itself. That goo can reorganize itself into the butterfly. And that's the transition. That's the dark night of the soul. The caterpillar is going into the cocoon. It goes into the twilight sleep. Nothing seems to be happening. Everything seems to be going wrong. The identity, the caterpillar disappears completely. It feels like, emotionally at least, it feels like a death. And it is, because it's the death of your old self, the limited self, the self that inherited and adopted and was imposed upon, perhaps, all these old ideas that no longer serve you. And when all that is cleared away and the new energy that is coming through from the center and rippling out eats away everything in its way, then once that happens, then the transformation into the butterfly, so to speak, can happen. and then you will start to notice things in the physical realm around you, the physical space, show up to reflect the new energy that you've held. So one thing you need to do is you need to go into that time alone. I mean, the whole world last year is a lot of people still going through it in all sorts of different ways, because it takes a while to let go of all these things. It takes a while to change these new patterns sometimes, if you're not preparing for them. And so, or even if you are preparing for them, depending on how big a leap in frequency you're going through, is going to determine how long the process takes. For me, the last transition took me, it was a good couple of years, but that was a big leap. And then there's other ones that take a few days. It's like when you go to the gym and you train really hard and you're sore for a few days, it takes a few days before the body settles down into the new configuration, and then you have a new normal. It's, that buzz phrase that's going around everywhere, a new normal. And so the temptation is to, like I said, rebuild the new energy back to resemble the old energy. Look, you can't really put it back exactly the same. It takes a lot of effort to even put it back into resemble the same shape, but it'll never be the same. It'll be a copy of what it was. And so maybe your process is going to be a little bit slower and you have to repeat it again. That's fine. There's no end to this game. You take as long as you like. When we get into the eternal moment of now, this is all there is. So even when you make the transition, you're going to be enjoying whatever fruits of that labor are until you decide to change again. And that's just how it goes. The only thing that doesn't change is that we continue to change and change and change. But if you've got a bit of the warrior spirit in you, like me, and you want to go for it, and you're prepared and you have a good exit strategy out the other end, and you know how to look after yourself, then you can stave off those cravings to put everything back to how they used to be. You can stave off the craving to fill that gap of having someone in your life, and you can go into solitude. And I'm not saying you need to not be in a relationship to do this. You can be in a relationship and still have time for yourself, and I think that's healthy for all relationships, for both sides of the equation, for you and for your partner. But if we're in the context of people who have just exited a relationship, for example, and you know who you are if that's you, then if you can just sort of feel your way through the pain a little bit and go through the grieving process of letting that person go, not just letting that person go, letting all the things that allowed you to connect to that person, let go of all the things that made you who you were in context of that relationship. If you can let all those things sort of just dissolve, and in their own time, in their own way, don't force anything, don't strain, definitely don't strain, then what will happen is life will, and the energy around you will reorganize itself into a new configuration. And when that coagulation has happened, when you finish your discombobulation, and that crystallizes, solidifies, and becomes physical, and you embody that new energy, then you're going to be broadcasting at that new field as default. And if you want to have a relationship again, a much better match to your new self will start to present itself in the field. Okay, and don't get me wrong. It's not about changing the person in the relationship, because sometimes if the best relationships that I've come across is the ones where you can change and the person changes with you as well. So you can still be with the same person even though you're not the same person and they're not the same person, but you're still you know, the two bodies are still together, if that makes sense. You're just new versions of each other, and you've decided to continue the process together because you're both adapting. And I think that's a good thing, don't you? I think there's something in that for all of us, don't you? And so if you can go through that, the withdrawals of not only those things in your life, the habits, the emotional addictions that you have in relation to that, and you know, detox, for example, you purge all those energies, all those things that are stuck in your energy field, in your physical body. You know, I'll give you an example, personal example. I regularly get deep tissue massages, and because I've sustained a lot of little niggling injuries over the years, and when you're going through these changes regularly, and it's like part of what you do now, you'll notice the little blockages, or I like the term frozen time conglomerates, that get stuck and stained inside the body. And these are just energy at a particular frequency that refuses to let go, or the body's still holding on to, or you're keeping around you because of whatever payoffs and whatever reasons. And with these massages that I've been getting, especially when we get into a real tight spot or one of those frozen time conglomerates, a lot of emotion and a lot of memory that I haven't even consciously remembered will come to the surface to be cleared. Now, instead of going into those memories and having the argument with the person around that event, which is meaningless now, and rehashing that energy and reliving it, I just start to relax and breathe and allow that energy to be released and dissolved and dispersed way out into the field in tiny, tiny little, you know, particles until they dissolve into nothing. And then once that's gone, it's just like breaking the ice and letting it melt. Then you're free to use that space in the body to heal, to rebuild, to, you know, change it into whatever you want. And like a hard drive on a computer, it will start to store new energy and which is new information which has been waiting on the periphery of your energy, can actually get into the body and anchor itself there, and that becomes your new frequency, and that's what you broadcast into the field. And that's when you start manifesting, and that's when weird shit starts to happen in your life, and you start to see that this is like, what is actually happening here? Because I thought about it, I didn't even speak it, and now it's showing up in my life. It's actually part of my reality. And that's when things get really exciting. So stick with it. Go through the process. Do the best you can. Do whatever you can to keep going. You know, if you can't and you slide back, well, that's all right. It's just life. But if you can, you know, and I recommend you give it a red hot go, give it your all. If you can get through that, then you're in a whole new dimension on the other side. And that's what, you know, to me, that's what we're all here to do. You know, we're all here to change it up, change the game. And if you face your pain, you win this game.